Welcome everybody to seminar number 2. I know that seminars are not particularly popular. I've not just seen that myself running 2 history courses, but I've been told by other lecturers, mainly because it sort of throws people out time-wise necessarily. So for those of you who are here, I really appreciate it. It's great. So some of you may be in my tutorials at Sippy Downs, and I look forward to meeting up with you next week, physically, in person, face-to-face. But I want to say a big thanks to Gil and Caitlin for covering the classes that I couldn't attend. At the moment, I'm doing really well with this long COVID-y thing. It's still in the background. I still know it's there. I can feel it sometimes. So, but yeah, I'm way better than I was. At the beginning of this semester, I was just rubbish. And so I apologize if communications and so on were not as smooth as they should have been. But as we found out, we're talking to Tyler there, that it's really important to have all forms of communication as smooth as possible, so you can get emails, messages, and so on. I want to congratulate you all on surviving assessment 1. It was using Padlet, using a visual form was a new thing for this course, and we were not sure how you were going to go with it, but I had a look at probably 10 or 15 Padlets, because I do the moderating, so I have to go through and check high distinctions and fails and so on. And it was really interesting to see what people had done with the Padlet experience. Anybody want to give us your personal feedback? Because I'm really interested in hearing what people thought about that assessment, especially the Padlet part. Yeah.
No, I thought it was good using Padlet. I've never used it before, but it's that breakdown video was handy on how to put arrows in and put pictures in to explain stuff. I didn't mind it at all.
Oh, good. Thank you, Luke.
It was
anybody else?
Yeah, it was all right. Trying to get a bit of detail into the Padlet's a bit painful, because you can't really tell it where the arrows to go. So they ended up going like under each other and stuff. So it was hard to get a good map working for me.
Yeah. Okay. Do you reckon that's simply because it was a new tool, or do you think that's actually a design problem with Padlet? Because there are other versions of that kind of thing, I
think it's probably just a feature that they haven't got yet. They might have it at some point, but yeah, the arrows just sort of go where they want to go. You can't really direct them around other objects.
And you can't make them go both ways, which is really important for our concepts. But I mean, you had to construct a loop more manually. Yeah,
that's true. I mean, I don't know whether any of you are familiar with, I've used 2 others like Padlet. One's called Miro board, M-I-R-O board. Anybody use that one? Donna, you're nodding knowledgeably, like maybe you've used it.
I've heard of it, but never used it.
Okay, so Miro board is quite good. I don't know, Gil, whether it does arrows both ways. It
does. Oh, yours.
Miro board. And there's the other one that I use. Actually, I used it just the other day to great effect. I often get asked to do lectures that are online and international type thing, and I did one using the simplest version that I could find, which is Jamboard, Google Jamboard. Anybody use Google Jamboard? No? Worth looking at. It's free, and it does pretty much what Padlet does. From what I can tell, you can import images into it and things like that. And just like Padlet, if you open it up to a community, everybody can work with it. But again, Gil, I don't remember whether it allows for arrows to go both ways. So I'll have to
that would just be a design limitation. But now that I think about it, it's not going to necessarily help in visualizing the way the concept is actually working, because you would need text to make sure that both way thing is articulate,
explicit.
So it might even be better to not have it, so you have to construct a loop.
Anyway, we can I can sort of chase some of the learning technology people at uni about other modalities, whether we can actually use another Says, I know we could use Google Jamboard because it's free, but I remember, Gil, you hit the wall when you asked whether we could use Padlet for the class, didn't you? And remember, they were saying, oh, individual lecturers are using Padlet, but they said if we were going to make it open for everybody, full functional, it was going to cost, an arm and a leg.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Yes.
week 2.
So for everybody's account. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So it caused a momentary, not for us, but for the people on the technology side, it caused some angst for a little while until we said, no, we'll just get you guys to use the free to air type Padlet thing. So but anyway, anybody else got any more feedback on it? It can be negative as well, of course. You don't have to be just telling us that it's a wonderful tool when you thought the whole thing sucked, but we could have made you write an essay, which I tell you what, we've done in the past many times, and it causes many of you to go, or even grayer than I am, or white. I'm white. Yeah. So so I think you got off lucky with a Padlet and a 300-word statement, and you seem to have nailed what we were asking you to do anyway, to sort of define the sort of maps of complexity stuff. So anybody else want to give us any feedback before we move on?
Could I ask a question about the seminar formats?
Sure.
Because I know a lot of this is based on feedback that apparently we don't want lectures, but
no, that's right. No, shouldn't you guys hate lectures?
But I've never had one, so I don't know if I hate it if I've never had one. So I just wondered, like, when we do these, is there opportunities for us actually to come together in one place? Because I look at all the pictures and there's so many of us like sitting around campuses and stuff. I'm just like, it seems a bit odd.
I guess what we could do just for fun, and as long as I don't get yelled at by somebody upstairs, is I could say, look, I'm going to do a lecture like for the good old days, experiencing the past.
A history lecture for the history of the good old days. Yeah.
I could do something like that maybe, and
so that would be underground. It would be a guerrilla tactics lecture. It would be flying under the radar. We all sneak into LT1.
No, LT1's too big. We will sneak into LT5, somewhere where it's more intimate, like we used to do. So then I would just wander around telling stories, and I'd have quite a rich lecture deck. I mean, I've been going very minimal because of this new thing. We're not allowed to talk to you for actually, I've been hitting 45 minutes. I think sometimes I'm really trying to pull myself back to what they're asking, because it's good discipline for me just to nail the concepts, but it's not, it means a lot of it's very abstract. We're not saying, okay, with the Egyptians this, with the Chinese that, with the Aztecs this, and there's a lot of stuff that's kind of been lost really because of the way that this whole new system's been set up. I don't know how we're still getting 5 out of 5 for teaching satisfaction from you guys. I look at that and I think, who's doing the statistics on this, or something? Because to me, I keep being told by students when I see you guys, I haven't seen many people this year, but last year, I felt there was a lot of dissatisfaction. But I could be wrong. And you guys are first years. Most of you are first years, yes? So Donna, you said you've never had a lecture, so you must be reasonably new on the block.
Second year, but I did TPP beforehand as well. So I've been on campus for 2 years, but I never got the experience of the pre-COVID experience.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else have an opinion about lectures or having experienced any? Have you experienced?
I'm in it's my 4th year of university, first year in this course.
Yeah.
I much preferred the old 2-hour lecture, 30-minute to an hour tutorial.
Yeah.
It was, it was much easier to keep up and stay engaged with the content than just sort of having some stuff to look at online whenever.
Yeah. Well, people aren't looking online. I can tell you, I went and looked at the snapshot that I did for this week, and 4 people had viewed it. That was just like an hour ago. So I think
one of them was me.
One of them was you, and one was two of the 2 tutors have viewed it.
I just looked at it before this. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's hilarious. One of the things some lecturers get really antsy about, I've gone and done all this. To me, I don't worry. I mean, you guys have to manage your time. Most of you have got part-time jobs, families, whatever it might be. And I've never been particularly judgmental about things. One of the things that I did notice, because I also went and looked at we have the ability to look at the number of hours you're spending on the course. That's really interesting because some people have spent 120, 130, 40 hours. So you're obviously engaging with other aspects of the Canvas course. And some people have spent less than 10 hours. And there are about 6 people who haven't even opened up Canvas. So they're obviously, I have no idea what they're doing, but they're obviously not engaging with the course. Gil and Rosie didn't mark them because they didn't submit anything. So that, we always have those outliers as well. It's really interesting to look at the thing. For my smaller course, I actually got my statistics son, Luke, to come in and graph the amount of attendance on Canvas itself. And there's like 6 people out of 30 or so who are fully engaged. And there are some people who are just sort of, their little thing on the graph is like 1 hour, half an hour, something like that. And we randomized it. He's very good at that stuff. So you couldn't actually take the thing and then look at the students in the order, alphabetical and stuff. But for me, that tells me a lot. It tells me a lot about the struggles to engage, the difficulty of the impersonality of, especially something like history. History is I reckon you can probably do statistics like online and not have to talk to anybody because it's such a, you can correct me on this, but it's a less personal experience. But to me, history is an experience of, hanging out with the Gills and the Caitlins and myself, and of course your peers. But it's also an experience of taking a journey with humanity. So to me, there's something else there that's really important that, I think we need to connect with others. So the lecture idea, Donna, I will organise that towards the end, like maybe lecture week 13 or I'm not sure, one of those last weeks, and we'll just see who shows up, hey? And it'll have to be on Sippy because that's where I'm based. So if you're in Moreton, you can be tragic or you can drive up the road and see us. Okay. All right, so that's dealing with what's being done so far, and we're obviously talking about some of the difficulties that we've faced. I'm interested in exploring how you've experienced the course through use of this Go Soapbox. So, I've asked if you looked at the module page, it says, can you come with your favorite reading, a quote from your favorite reading, something. I've got about 3 or 4 things there, which I'll show you in a moment. But before we do, I want to make sure that because I'll forget, is that we talk about assessment 2, which is the Pecha Kucha. Okay, and it's simply, this is a tighter form of what we used to do with the course all the time, which is everybody get up and they would do a presentation about some theme that they really enjoyed, I don't know, the Aztecs or something. But the Pecha Kucha means that we can condense that down to 6 to 7 minutes. And in order to make it manageable, I asked you in the assessment to do 4 postcards. So, here's the pyramids of Egypt. Here's, something, the Acropolis. This is me down at, Mooloolaba Bar somewhere, because it could be a heritage, and I wanted to make sure that it wasn't necessarily world heritage. So, and you could be thinking about how you want to present that. I made 2 video recordings for you, one of which has been quite well viewed already. About 30 or 40 people have looked at that one. And that's on the technology. So how to set up your PowerPoint, how to set up the automatic timings. I had to do 3 or 4 takes on my little exemplar Pecha Kucha because you have to think differently, 20 seconds per slide, not rushing, getting breathless, not sort of halfway through a sentence when it changes to another slide, that sort of stuff. So I would say make sure that you do practice it a few times before you have a crack. I think that, and I've been doing this talks for years. So it was even, for me to be disciplined enough to be watching. So yeah, I just want to make sure that the Pecha Kucha stuff isn't causing you to lose sleep, to stress out too much. Maybe you haven't even looked at it yet, you know, because it's still a few weeks away. Any thoughts, feedback? I'm welcoming that now.
I think Rosie might have the correct pronunciation of Pecha Kucha. If you want to share it.
Come on, Rosie, up.
Oh, what's that? The pronunciation?
Yeah. Yeah, we went
yeah.
through it in our tutorial last week and we discovered how to say it properly.
Yeah. So I was looking at some exemplars of Pecha Kucha videos on the Pecha Kucha website, and on the videos about Pecha Kucha there, they say Pecha Kucha rather than Pecha Kucha.
I have listened to 3 ones which all say Pecha Kucha.
That's
like
so
that.
interesting.
And because there's stuff about, it's a Japanese word meaning chit chat or phrase, and yeah, so that's really interesting. Can you send me that link, please, Caitlin?
Yeah, I will.
Then I'll have a listen to it. Yeah, and actually, I've got a Japanese friend. I should ask her. Yeah. All right. So yeah, so we're not going to worry about how we pronounce it right now. we can engage with that in the next week or so. But yeah, so, and Gil, if you know anybody who's a Japanese speaker, yeah, either that or we can. Gil and I we're heroes with Duolingo. He's learning German. Can you say something wonderful in German yet, Gil?
Ich verstehe nicht.
Okay, good. Ja, toll, Svenska. That means I don't speak any Swedish. Yeah, so I'm learning Swedish and Portuguese, and it's a lot of fun. Yeah. So are you languaging as well, Caitlin?
Yeah, saya belajar bahasa Indonesia di sekolah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, so there we go. So, but none of us are doing Japanese unless we have a secret Japanese, person amongst us, somebody who perhaps really likes Studio Ghibli,
I did it in high school, but it sounds right. Pachakucha. That would sort of the emphasis. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So my sources were Americans, so they could be totally wrong. But anyway, so nobody's got any real issues yet with the Pacha or Pacha presentations. That should just be fun.
Can I make a note to everybody here that we're going to be, so most of the people who've been present have been scheduled now, and we're going to send that through to Marcus. My next on my list.
Yeah. So
they'll be posted, and if people are here who haven't got a presentation slot, that's okay. Then we'll just take it from there and fill in the gaps.
Yeah, beautiful. And I'll fill in more gaps next week when I get the stuff from Gil and Rosie that have been done for my classes, and I'll just run them off and print them out and come in with them, so you can say, no, can I change this one? Or, I said I wanted to do it in week, what is it, 9, 10, 11, something like that? Am I right, Gil? Yeah. All right. So yeah, that's where we are. You can see my brain's still catching up with things like that. All right. Now let's turn to the substance of what we're going to do. Then I'm going to do I'm just going to check that I've actually got it sitting here. Here we go. And I've got to go back one. I've got it on the, actually, no, we'll start here. All right. So I'm going to share my screen and hopefully it'll work fine. So on the, in module 7, week 7, I've asked you to set up the Go Soapbox and to type this number in. At the moment, I haven't opened any of the questions. So did people see this? This is a really interesting question. I know that in my other course, which is the 3rd year course, they're really bad. And I actually talked to one of the students who last year was an ambassador for Canvas. And she said that 1st year students seem to be doing much better with Canvas because it's what you know. Whereas the 3rd year guys that I'm dealing with, have all been using the previous system, Blackboard, and they're not really engaging with this system particularly well. I don't know whether Gil and Caitlin, you've seen the same sort of thing, but certainly I'm finding that people are not engaging very much with, less definitely with the third years and you guys. Okay. So let's assume then that you've got you've got Go Soapbox. That's the app there. You can get it on already downloaded. You type this number in. I'll just leave it there a little bit longer. And then we will go back one page where we've got this shopping list of things that I said, could you do this? So these activities before class, can you review the global citizenship conversations? Some conversations have been listened to a fair amount. Some of them have hardly been listened to at all. I'm noticing it seems to be quite a diverse engagement there. But what I'm interested in is make a list of some of the key points that speakers that you've listened to have made, that strike you as powerful insights, curious, surprising, what you disagree with. I got one question on the Go Soapbox for you regarding that. I want to have a look at these national geo readings. Make a list of 4 things that you've learned, bring them to this seminar. Well, I've got a question on that. Also, bring your favorite quote to the seminar from any one of the readings that we've done so far. Something that I think, and I said favorite because I wanted something that you emotionally related to, it's so that we get an insight into the complexity and complexion both of the group that you are, History 140 folk. So I've asked you to set up Go Soapbox and watch and listen to this guy here. So this is the one that only 4 or so people had listened to. I would ask you to go and listen to that after this session at your leisure. You know that you can play them in your car as you're driving along and that sort of stuff. There are multiple ways of accessing that. All right. So I'm going to stop share for a moment. Should I go back? I've just got to look at chat. 4 people have put things in the chat. Oh, Caitlin, one of them is you, Caitlin. Charlie, second years have had some lectures, but mostly only a few other people there. That's from you, Charlie. Thank you. Nicola, first year, only law lectures. Yeah, law for some reason, we're part of the School of Law and Society. But lawyers seem to get off better than the society half. So yeah, I'll just close that one down for a moment. I'm going to stop share. And I'm going to now open up the Go Soapbox questions. So I'm assuming readings, the national geos. Let's start with the conversation. So I'm going to unlock that one. All right. So if you refresh your screen, nothing happens in Go Soapbox without it being refreshed. If I change something, okay, what we're interested in here is the answers that you offer. It answers your responses, I think is probably the better term, actually. So I can actually go back and share this screen. I have the godlike powers. So what you'll see is that here's this question, okay? Which conversation touched or impressed you? And what was it that caught your attention? And you're going to have a little box there that you can reply in. I remember from the past that there's a limit. I don't know what the limit is. If you type in a small novel there, you will find that you hit a point where you have to hit enter and you can keep on going. You won't see the names of the students that are responding as well. I've actually made it currently so that you can only see your own response. But when we open for discussion and we go into breakout rooms, I will make this available. I'll hit a thing. You go to refresh, and you can see, all the responses that we get there. So, anybody got any issues with that? I just popped up without refresh. Oh, did it? How cool is that? Maybe they've improved it since last year. Last year, I always had to refresh everything. We'll play that one by ear. So, thank you, you two. So, yeah, I'm going to be quiet and let you type in a response to this. I'm particularly interested in the conversations because I've never done anything like this before. This is part of me trying to get a personal touch to something that's so impersonal, the way we're working on, I'm stopping sharing, the way we're working through recordings and online stuff and so on. So it was long before I got COVID or any of these horrible things. Late last year, I started lining people up. So we've got 11 recordings already done, one more going to happen, and then I'm going to do a final thing where I bring them together somehow. I know what I would like to do, but I'm not sure whether that would work or not. But yeah, so I'll leave it to you. I'm going to zip it for 5. Okay, I'm going to talk my phone. Okay, hey Siri, set timer for 5 minutes. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to come up with a response. Yes,
just so I know. So I've put press reply. Can you check and see if one's come through, because it just disappeared from my screen?
Oh. Yes, Gil. Yeah, you can.
There's one there.
I've got 2 of them. Yeah.
I pressed reply twice because I wasn't sure it had gone through.
Don't take it as an offensive thing that I'm going to knock off one of them. So we got Donna. Thank you. You've given us something as well. Schumacher it's great. They've only done one online seminar so far, which I attended, and it was really terrific.
Are these conversations just to do with this seminar, do you mean?
No, what I'm thinking of is something that stands out for you. No, when I said seminar to Donna, listen to conversation number 1, you won't know that the woman I was talking to is wonderful. She's Italian, but she's all currently in Canada, Donna. And she was talking about something that gives her hope of this Schumacher education that she's involved with. So that's what I was talking about there, Luke, just to clarify.
I might jump in here briefly with just a little reminder to make sure your microphone is muted if you're not speaking. There is a little bit of background noise coming through, and I'm not sure how it'll turn off the recording.
From Tim and Sarah or Sarah. They're the 2 with non-muted. I guess you can see that. Look, let's see if I have truly godlike powers. I just muted you, Tim, and you just unmuted yourself again. Oh, good. I love Zoom. At least people are no longer lying in bed half naked, which they were at the beginning of COVID, which was kind of a thrill, but, it was also something that was unnecessary. One guy had his girlfriend next to him. It was too much. I actually had to turn his camera off. Actually, and another woman got up and walked around, and she wasn't wearing just knickers. That's all she was in. She had a top on, but she walked away from the screen. So there are some fun Zoom adventures. But I'm distracting you. I should be quiet. Let's see. So far, 5 people have responded.
Yeah, so which conversations were we talking about again? Sorry, the ones we've had in tutorials.
No, the conversations that are online on in Canvas itself, there are well, you've had 7 conversations so far.
Yeah, I'm with you now.
Yeah. So that was my clock going 5 minutes, Tyler. So we've got Gil, Donna, Nicola, Caitlin, and Tyler. We'll give you another couple of minutes. Donna, you're not the only person to have told me that.
If something happens, if you try and listen to them in the car, if I move, maybe it's just me, but if I move the phone screen, then it stops playing when you play it through the student app. So yeah, it could well just be me, but yeah, like I have to keep it on a flat surface and not let the phone move, and then I can listen to it with headphones. So I just thought, if it's on a podcast app, then I can just listen to it anytime. So I don't always need to see it. So
yeah. All right, I'll talk to my son about that.
Sometimes I watch your videos on your YouTube page.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I can watch it through the TV.
Yeah. It's scary for me, but it sounds good. Given how rough they are, but yeah.
What's the channel called, Detroit?
It's just my name, I think.
It's your name.
Yeah. Right. Oh, okay.
So yeah, and there are a lot there. It's like an archaeological dig. It goes back years and years with stuff there. Most of the History 140 stuff I've delisted so that it's not necessarily there, but there might be 1 or 2 History 140 things from the past, which are like blasts from the past, that you might be interested in, because as I was saying, some of you came in late. The course has changed in many ways. Yeah. Pecha Kucha. Okay, who's that? From Caitlin. Okay, yeah. Thank you. All right, so I'll just go and check how many people have responded now. Tyler, Detroit, Charlie, Tim. All right, so some of you, maybe those who aren't responding, have you not listened to them? Maybe that might be it. You're just thinking, what the hell am I talking about? Yeah, so there's another chat comment. Who's that? Oh, no, that's from you, Caitlin, still. Yeah. All right. So what I'm going to do is, regardless of whether you put down or not, I'm going to edit the discussion. I'm going to hit students can see all responses. That's that one. Hit save. So now I'm pretty sure you're going to have to refresh your screen. All right. And I'm going to divide you guys up into 2 groups or 3. I'm looking at how many are here? 14 participants. So yeah, so that means so we'll go for 2 groups. And what I'd like you to do is to look at the responses and to think about other people, not your one. You will speak to yours when the conversation starts, but to start, and in groups, to start talking about the things that you connect with that somebody else has said. So rather than you having to justify why you liked Livia, okay, Philological, why is it that, you can say, I haven't seen that one. Can you tell me more about Purush Chaudhary, which seems she's come up once or twice there. She's the Pakistani woman that I spoke to. I think, was it just last week or is it this week's one? So it's quite a recent one. All right. So I'm going to create 2 groups. And you guys are going to get flung into one or the other, I think. Yeah, so we've got room 1. Oh, look at that. It knows. So, Gil, you're in one group, and Caitlin, you're in the other group. So, and I'm going to give you, 10 minutes? I don't want to push my luck with the breakout room, so we'll do 10 minutes, okay? And I'm going to pause the recording because I didn't do that last time. So there were these long moments of sort of suspended animation. You guys have to accept. Okay. You're all coming back. So what I might do is I'll share the screen so everybody can see what we were looking at. Got to find where it is first. It's hiding. And we can reflect. I'll just pull this up. Go here. Go here. Gone back to there for some reason. So I'll jump back and share screen now. That's the one. So here we are. So how was that? Was that enough time to discuss and sort of have a look at what everyone was doing? Yeah, Donna thinks so. I can only see a couple of you because I'm sharing the screen, so I can't see everybody. So yeah, Charlie's, you're nodding. Luke, is that a kind of semi-Luke nod? Yeah, okay. So let's start with group one, which was Charlie, Detroit, Donna, Gil, Jess, Luke, and Sarah or Sarah? I want to make sure I'm pronouncing it. Which way am I? Can you tell me, Sarah, so that we don't have another Pechakucha moment?
Yeah, just Sarah.
Sarah. All right.
Yeah.
So, because I have Norwegian and Swedish colleagues, and it's nearly always Sarah. You see,
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of check. All right. So, can someone speak for group one? Give us a little bit of a feedback on what stood out for various people. I'll have a cup of tea. I'm not going to talk. And Gil, you don't talk for your group. You let these people. So we got, who was it? Charlie, Detroit, and Donna, Jess, Luke, and Sarah. All right.
Well, I think we all had different ideas about it, so I wasn't sure if they wanted me to talk or if we all.
There's no right or wrong. Just tell us what went through your head, Charlie. Others can totally disagree with you, but then it's up to them to speak. You see.
Yeah. Well, we were at the end. We were talking about the conversation this week. I cannot remember her name, but she was talking about trust and and identity.
Yeah.
And and we were talking about how trust is governed by it's from young people. So trust is a survival mechanism, and that the young trust easily or more easily.
Would you agree, Charlie? Well, I would classify you as young. I have no idea how old you are.
Well, I'm not 20 yet, so I suppose I'm young.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But I think there is a kind of naivety that comes with being a young person in a world that's kind of governed digitally, or far more digitally than it once was. I think I was saying before that nowadays young people are connecting with other people around the world on profiles that may not even be who you're actually speaking with.
Very true. Yeah.
And I think Donna was also talking about how it's very instantaneous. Digitally, it's very instantaneous, like response-wise, and
it's a good point, actually. But this interesting thing about trust is because there are different zones in which different generations, I think, trust. It's very interesting looking at, let's say, the trust or not the trust in government today. Let's say around COVID or around management of the economy or whatever. most Australians seem to, the majority, probably 70–80% of Australians trusted our governments, particularly our state governments during the COVID, lockdowns and so on. Not so many trust them in terms of handling the economy. So trust is not evenly distributed, both in terms of demographics of age, gender too. Women trust differently to men. So there are a bunch of interesting elements there. I'm going to look at a name there, Detroit. Can I ask you for a little bit, can you embroider what Charlie was saying, or can you take us off on something else that stood out for you? And I'm just looking here. I think you responded, didn't you? No, you didn't.
Yeah, she did.
Did she?
Further down.
Tyler. Oh, there, Detroit. You enjoyed the conversation. Is that having a guest speaker every week? Yes, it's true. Sue Hetherington, wonderful, wonderful person. Yeah. She's the oldest in the thing. I tried to make sure that we had a very broad spread of ages. So the Filipino woman, Roselle, she's about 25. And so she's been part of the Filipino Youth Council, whereas Sue's at the other end. She'd be about my age, mid-60s or something. And she was the CEO for British Health or something, and until she said she literally burnt out. She was doing that for 10 years. And she fell in a heap, but she's rebuilt herself. So tell us what you got out of that conversation. Maybe might be interesting, rather than burrowing down into the trust thing. Maybe we should touch on different elements. Detroit?
I guess the first thing, actually, maybe I should say, so I guess I was a bit more fresh at the start. So a lot of the conversations I haven't listened to towards the end, but this one I really liked. I even just liked the way she spoke as well, but I just liked how she talked about the quiet disruptors and just making those small changes. You don't have to be how do I explain, you don't have to be big and out there to make a change in the world. You can just do it as you are, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I liked how she said, we're all interconnected, we're connected. And to say, and to also view the world with different lenses.
Yeah, that's right. And it's interesting because, and this wasn't planned, but this fungi type idea, it's quite a powerful metaphor, because it was conversation number one with Livia Vilatico, and also the one with Amanda Reeves. I think she's the only Australian one, and they talked about entanglement. And I'm not sure if it was Amanda or Olivia, but one of the two mentioned fungi as well, because I think it's quite a powerful metaphor. Luke, can I ask you to give us just a little bit of your insight there? So, or maybe you didn't watch them. So, because are you here, Luke? Did you hit enter for something? If not, I hope we've inspired you to go and have a listen to a couple of them at least.
No, I didn't put anything in there, sorry.
Yep. Is that because you didn't listen to any of them yet?
I watched a couple, not all of them. I'd have to go back through my notes and see what I wrote down.
Yeah, okay. All right, if something jumps out at you, let us know. Sarah, can you, and you'll be the last one, then we'll jump to room 2, and then we'll have a broader conversation around them, okay?
I'm sorry, I wasn't just there for I just did my laundry, so I didn't know what you were just saying. Just 2 minutes.
No, that's fine. Sarah, were you part of the breakout room?
Yeah, I was.
Okay. Have you watched any of the? Because I'm looking here and I'm not seeing your name unless I'm missing.
I think it's because I've been doing readings while I'm listening to them, so I haven't got full of everything. Trying to multitask.
That's fun. I like that. A young person doing the readings and listening at the same time.
Yeah.
And were you playing a video game as well, like my son? He does.
No, I wasn't.
What are you doing? I can't understand how young brains work.
No, so I just wasn't sure what to write down.
Sure.
So, Yeah.
All right. I mean, to me, it doesn't really matter what you chose to write down. It's more, I guess, because this is quite a lot of my time and other people's time invested in this. I want to know, is it worth doing on an annual basis? Because I was thinking maybe I could have a different theme if when this course runs next year. Maybe I could particularly pick on people who are engaged in, I don't know, ecological movements. Now, I've got one of my PhD students, she sent an image yesterday. She's in Sweden, but she gets around all over the place. She's in North France somewhere, building an organic garden or something. She's got this beautiful photograph of this kind of greenhousing they've been building and so on. So I guess what I'm trying to do is to work out, does this work? Is it worth pursuing and so on? I mean, I might say to Gil and Caitlin, does it work? And you might say, yeah, it's really cool. But, they're not necessarily the best people to ask. It's better to ask the students who are actually at the receiving end. Does that make sense, Sarah?
Yeah. Well, I really like the fact that it's different people, different ages, and from different countries. Like I'm from Denmark myself. So, of course, I give off different views and things. And that's what's important. So I like that part of it.
That's great. And there's just a few more women than men, but try to get the agenda thing as well split across there. So anyway, thank you, Sarah. I appreciate your honesty there. That's useful. So let's jump to room 2. That's Becca, Caitlin, Nicola, Tabitha, Tim, and Tyler. So what sort of things stood out for
Marcus? Marcus, I'm happy to start. Just because I'll carry on from, I suppose, what you were kind of just also saying, tailoring to, maybe our courses. So I'm in a design planning course. And, what I really enjoyed the metaverse sort of theories. I think they're inevitable. I think the introduction of AI, so, and the staging of this, what I said in our chat room was, I think the Bitcoin or the cryptocurrency was maybe a failed stage first. The communication platforms of the Facebook, what they're trying to create with metaverse is probably a better way to go. Create the communication platforms and then stage from there. Let policy develop, let currencies, finance, trading, etc. develop from that. But it allows for a more sustainable sort of growth to the population rather than continuing to build, industrial, hard concrete platforms. It allows a whole new, area, a realm for us to develop as humans. So I love the idea of the metaverse. I think it gives AI a never-ending future as well. It can govern. It can do all these amazing things with big data that humans can't do in a metaverse, and allows us to operate across a broad range of platforms simultaneously in our everyday lives. So,
Great. So that was the metaverse. That's Jose Ramos, right?
Just it was Truesh.
Puresh did, because Jose
right
talked about some of that too. Yeah, Purush. Okay, I don't remember us talking about the metaverse, but I've had 11 of these conversations now. So,
well, it just flew by very quickly, and I sort of had because there's different understandings of the metaverse, but I assumed what she was talking about was more like a multi virtual kind of reality.
Well, there are
space as opposed to multiple universes. Which
there are not multiple. There are 4, maybe 5 different readings of the metaverse, depending on who you ask. Different forms of technology involved. Google has got its own own version of metaverse. But I've got a friend who is she's a French woman who has just got a new job dealing with metaverse matters. I could ask her. To tell us about her approach to the metaverse, and maybe that could be on the side of the conversation. Maybe in the last week, it might be useful to have something like her talking about some of the emergent issues. I mean, one of the interesting things about world history, the way this course is taught, built on David Christian's thinking and so on, is that the source or the form of communication changes when we enter a new period of social and cultural evolution, reality, whatever. Okay, and that's Jeremy Rifkin, whom I used to use quite a lot, if Gil and Caitlin remember. He talks about the, I think it's either third or the fourth industrial revolution. There are different people talking about different revolutions all over the place. But what's interesting about it is that the metaverse is being treated as a new step in human communication, human connection. And of course, the role of AI, alternative forms of economy to do with Bitcoin and other things. Bitcoin is very much premised on the question of trust, okay, to go back to an earlier conversation there. Now, I'm looking at some a comment that's in the chat from Nicola, which is quite extended. Can you guys all see that? Can you open up your chat to see what she says? She's got a lot of background notes. So she said that her group 2 discussed Livia Filosofo and the fluctuating focus on the local and the global. Yeah. Now, talking about that makes me think of the wonderful work from the Long Time Academy. Anybody did listen to their talk too, or do the Well of Deep Time? I did the Well of Deep Time again earlier today. Gil, what did you think of that? Because
I stopped when they gendered the Earth, which was
okay.
Sorry, the eco-feminist to me just went nah.
Okay. Did you listen to the? Of course, you waved your hand when I said, did you listen to part 2, that the second episode where they're talking about deep time and they're down underneath Finland in the bedrock, 100 years in the future and all that stuff, and talked about death dueling and all that? Yes. Yeah. Okay, because they talk about layers of temporality, which is what the local and the global is about at scale. That the world moves at different speeds at different. So I'm just picking up on that point from Livia that you're pointing us to, Nicola. So thank you for that. And then there's the exploration of the metaverse, which is what Tim you were talking to. The way it impacts on the broader the Matrix. The movie came up. A very cool movie. From a point from law. We constantly remind, are you doing law, Nicola? Is that your major or something like that? Is that why you're pointing us at that? We've got Tim here, Nicola. With all due respect, you obviously haven't sat in on law classes. That's right. So you are doing law. Yes, okay. And you've got, so Nicola and Tim are at odds in the sense that it seems that, so when we say, I'm just trying to make sense of the chat, we perform big data regularly, legal function of right or wrong. Okay, let's face the majority of law is textbook. Okay, all right. So, and you disagree with that, of course, Nicola, right? Am I assuming that correct? I love disagreement. It doesn't have to be, of course, personal. It's just, yeah, I see the world this way, I see the world that way. My experience is often behind why I see the world this way or that, and so on. But I think I really am not, I never promote homogenous worldview. I promote that we all need to think through why we think the world is as it is. And of course, history helps us do that. So I just wanted to just check who else is here on this one. Anybody in room to want to add anything more to what we've said? Okay, law is ever changing. Thank you, Nicola. It's a human view, a human judgment applied scenario by scenario. One of the things we used to have in our second year version of this course, because we had a second year version of this course long ago, was a very interesting futures piece from a legal expert talking about that the law always was responding to the emerging new. I don't know whether you would agree or disagree with that, but the emerging new means, okay, we've got Bitcoin, so we're going to have laws around Bitcoin now. So Bitcoin comes first, and then law jumps in to create the justice scaffolding that allows people, when you're going to disagree about Bitcoin, to do so. That might be worth having a look at. And if you're interested, Nicola, to email me or whatever, and I'll see if I can find that reading that I used to have as a PDF, just because it is worth looking at. It's an interesting question. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. Are there any generalized comments that you would like to do before I leap into the next thing I'm planning to do? Gil, yes, please.
Well, what we just glossed over was we had a discussion about the metaverse.
Yep.
It was the actual comment and the implications of that interested me, which was it gives each one of us the ability to create their own reality.
Mm.
I thought that was an interesting point, and it also leads into some of the other comments in there were about trust and how youth is sort of, I don't know, using it as to their advantage. I can't really see it. I actually had a fairly sort of negative reaction to that. And can I just run these by you? So I just saw a movie, pop culture reference, called Vengeance. And in it, in the climax, they have this huge discussion. And it's about cultures of disconnection, not connection. Internet culture, everyone has a voice, a commentary. Everyone constructs their own reality through their data feed. Therefore, all realities are optional. All truths are entertained. And this is a quote from the movie. Everything means everything, so nothing means anything. Everything is true, so nothing is true. And that's how we get conspiracy theories, post-truth, and alternative facts.
Mm.
That comment, when it came out, gives each of one of us the ability to create their own reality. That's actually, I'm seeing that as very negative, because there is no certainty in that regard, and there is no filter. And that's a potential problem with the metaverse that we're already experiencing.
Mm. Yeah, no, well, anybody else want to respond to that first before I leap in?
My very brief thought was that when there was the discussion about the metaverse giving us the freedom to create our own reality, I had some skepticism around that claim. I was thinking that focuses of power like Zuckerberg will probably have the power to limit what we can do in a space like that.
Mm.
But he's laid claim to that. And as Mark sort of said, that's coming very late in the picture. Everybody else is sitting back and going, mate, we already knew. You know.
I think that whether it's Zuckerberg or not, the concept of a global communication platform to move forward is going to probably be a requirement. Global regulatory frameworks and global economics and finance is going to be a need to go forward, because individual private corporations are getting obviously so big that there's going to need to be a regulatory function around them, because there is not at this point. And this is where my comment before on AI being a regulatory function can perform a lot of these big data requirements. So whether it's Zuckerberg putting a measly amount of a few billion in, or someone taking it seriously and putting trillions in and creating a law around it, somewhere around it, it's going to have to happen, because we can't keep having private enterprise get bigger and more powerful than governments.
I mean, that's a natural trajectory, though, Tim, of modernist capitalist or late capitalist society. And it's certainly the premise for many science fiction type writers and so on, particularly the dystopian ones, of course. You know the difference between dystopia and utopia? I just should check before I just use these terms. And Donna, are you familiar with the term, or Detroit? I'm looking because I've got your faces on the screen, you see, so I just want to see whether
I've heard about them before, but I don't know exactly which each one means.
Utopia is obviously the ideal or the perfect sort of world in some respects. Dystopia is Mad Max on steroids type thing, Dystopia is bad news type thing, a bad future. So, and it's kind of like your cup half full or your cup half empty, that sort of thing. Yeah. I've glossed it considerably. I just put up an article from Sylvia Gulliser, who's the woman that I'm thinking of, who's the metaverse sort of, she specializes in metaverse and futures thinking about, you know, what's emerging. And so I put that link up there just in case you want to chase that, some of you. But yeah, Gil, I think the inflation, you might say, of individualism, which is promoted way beyond Andy Warhol with his 15 minutes of fame, each of us, you know, and to 15 seconds of fame on, you know, I think there's something to be said for that, but I think we can invest too much in it. I still think that we live in a relational universe, even though the relationships might be online, you know, echo chambers, which of course we've seen particularly with conspiracy theorists and the right, but also the mad people on the left who can be just as you know, one-eyed about the world. I think, you know, we've got to. I think one of the things that I believe about a course like this is that even though we have small numbers vis-a-vis, you know, the student population of our university, is that everybody comes out of a course like this with a sharper, more critical kind of mind. Now, I mentioned critical, I'm pretty sure, well, I did mention it this weekend, but I make recordings for 2 different history groups. I'm not sure which one it is. Actually, I've got a stronger feeling it might be the other one. But yeah, this use of critical theory, critical mind. It's not uncritical, and you know, you're arguing. It's that you critique the awareness of how power shapes knowledge. So Gild's sort of ecofeminist, I'm stopping here type thing, is a critical theoretical or critical consciousness reaction to, you know, the way that people like what's her name, the long time academy person who's behind most of it, Ella Saltbush, wonderful woman, but you know, still very much caught up in generational thinking. She's probably in her 50s, I think, and so the world and her languaging of the world reflects the age that you're in. She comes out of journalism and so on. So part of the critical theoretical thing is to be able to also contextualize why it is that Trump does this. Why is it that Morrison does this? Why is it that, you know, so that we understand. And I think when we understand where people sit, for me, it's about bridge building. It's not about permissive acceptance of all values and everybody has is right. I think you have to say, okay, what's the impact? So the impact of gendering the earth is that we perpetuate old binaries that are no longer exist, you know, don't work. You know, they immediately you end up with men, women, you know, and that binary is part of the problem.
And it renders the earth and the environment passive, and the which is then, you know, needed to dominated and conquest, and
so it's the men
extract resources from, and it's just such an
you muted again, Gil. I don't know why you got muted.
It's just such an old problem that even in that one, I was really looking forward to the deep time thing. I was hearing it, and there was the waves in the background, and then it happened, and I just went, I can't invest, I can't suspend belief because it's so glaring, you know.
Yeah. So that's the issue. And having a critical mind is a mind that just is aware that how power influences the shape of our language and the way we do our history and so on. One of the reasons why, you know, we've got quite a new lineup of readings for this course, and it's because one of I'm noticing is that we're at the time of deep change between an old worldview and a new. Much of history tends to support the old worldview simply because it grows out of that worldview, and history is about legitimating certain readings of reality. You following me with this? Okay. So with that, then if you get Graeber or Songlines or that fantastic reading on weird, you know, the weirdest people in the world, you know, these are people who are offering new ways of thinking about the present and drawing historically on other ways of reading the past. So that then we've got more chance of having futures that are inclusive, generous, in many, many ways. We don't live in a generous world. You know, we're very judgmental about gender. We're very judgmental about ethnicity. We're very, you know, these things are just built into the old world, you could say. Whatever's coming, I'm not sure. But one of the things I like in that Long Time Academy longer interview thing is where she interviews a death doula, and she's talking about being death positive, because the world we're living in is dying. It doesn't mean that we're all doomed. It just means that the way we think about nature, reality, other people, other peoples, plural, the non-human world, all these things are being questioned now, and that's really, really important. But the questioning can be very limited if we don't do, courses like this, environmentalism, many courses, the new law stuff that Nicola's talking about, because let's say Jay, I know him quite well, very, very interesting environmental lawyer. And I think there's a couple of people in our school, in the law side, and I'm not very familiar with them because our school got merged just a couple of years ago. But they're doing very interesting stuff. Tim, what's his surname, Nicola? Tim, not the Tim here. The
Peters? Is it Tim Peters? Timothy
yeah,
Peters?
Yeah. Now he's doing some very interesting research work. So there's a lot happening in these spaces, and I think we need to be sensitive to that. But this is such an interesting conversation, but I'm ceasing to be sensitive to time. And I just looked at the time and I go, oh my God, it's 1:20 already. So what I'd like to do is to look at what I've been calling historical literacy. We can do all this theory stuff, but really we have to test anything, let's say any of these readings that we've done, against the actual historical record. What do we know about whether it's an individual, a cultural change, something like moving from hunter-gathering to agriculture, any of that sort of stuff. So a lot of what I've been putting up from the National Geographic magazines is quite simply a little hook. Maybe you know a lot about megaliths, but nothing about the Iliad, for instance, from the Greek myth, or maybe it's the other way around. So I'm just tossing out these things to feed your general knowledge. They're not scholarly articles. They're written to mainly to draw people in. They've got a good narrative to them, but they also provide context. And I think we need context when we do an abstract course like this. What's a global citizen? Well, if you can't be global if you don't have understandings of things from the past and also other cultures, right? So my next question is, and I'm just going to pop into the Go Soapboxing again. We'll do 2 out of the 3 questions, I think, because we're not going to get to the third one, not to do them justice anyway. Is related to something that caught your attention in the National Geographic reading. So I'm going to open that one. I'm going to close that one. So if you go and you refresh your Go Soapbox, you'll see that I've got a question there. I'm just making sure. Vengeance, Indie Movie. I'm going to go and have a look at that one, Gil. So thank you for that. One of the things I did while I was dying from COVID was watch a whole bunch of stuff on Netflix and Disney that I hadn't watched. And I've tried to sort of, I'll never catch up with Gil, of course, but I'm trying to, where is this Go Soapboxy thing? Trying to find, oh, that's what it is. I've got to open that. Sorry, I'm talking to myself while I'm working on this. All right, so yeah, here we go. That's what we need to see. So I'm assuming you've all got the question in front of you now. Of the 7 National Geographic readings that you've done so far, which did you find the most interesting? What is one thing that you've learned? Okay, so to me, this is just sticking my toe in the water to see where whether many of you have done any of the readings, And if you've done something, you've done one of them, maybe understanding that the Iliad, that great Greek mythic piece of poetry, was used by Schliemann in the 1870s to go and actually find where Troy sits. He's a guy with immense luck, but in his day, people were saying this is purely made up. It's purely invented. Whereas now we know that there's actual dates for the various periods of Troy, and that the Trojan War occurred somewhere around 1225 BCE. So that's really interesting to me. So good. Nicola and Donna have already put up responses. I'll give you just a couple of minutes to do that, and I will stop talking so that you can actually do it. So if you could hit enter, anybody who's been writing, we can move on. I'm just going to check again. What have we got? Thanks, Charlie, Tyler, Tim, Caitlin, Gil, Nicola, and Donna. All right, so Megalith don't have yet. I'm glad you got a mid-semester break planned, Donna. This is great to hear. All right, so I've got to go in there and share the thing, don't I? That's right, I forgot. Forgetting my job. Edit this discussion down to replies are visible, save. So if you hit refresh, I'm assuming that's what you need to do. We can have a look at responses there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put you into the same breakout rooms as last time. You didn't seem to fight too much. You were all well behaved. So I'm just going to open the breakout rooms now, give you 10 minutes on that, and then I'll call you back and we'll have a discussion about that.
Historical literacy, in terms of focus on that.
Yeah. So the actual doing of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that.
So it's sort of odd that we don't really touch on much actual history in most of the courses. It was just a bit surprising with that.
That's worth knowing. So you guys who are just coming back in, I asked Tyler whether the emphasis or the focus in that part of this course on historical literacy, whether it was something that worked for him, and he was saying that, you know, it's correct me if I'm wrong, Tyler, but you wish actually that there were more courses or courses that actually focused on the content of history. Who was this person? When did that happen? And all that sort of stuff. Am I right, Tyler? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, I'm just sort of surprised that we can go through like an entire major in history without touching on Homer or, you know, any of these ancient things. These really relevant historical things that you think would be forefront, but instead, you know, talking about heritage, talking about stuff that it can be important, but it's probably not as central, at least in my view, not as central as other things.
Yeah, no, I can hear. So I've noticed a few people were shaking your heads in agreement. So you agree with Tyler, or you think that you're from your experience, if you're doing a history major, and some of you may not be, that you know the broader approach is working well for you. I'm interested in knowing, because of course it's important for us in the history area to do that. Would love deeper focus on certain aspects of human history, as Tyler says. Yeah, I'll have to pull up the rest, Nicola, to see what else you said there. Above Nicola, by the way, there's a link to pronouncing Pechakucha, which I thought was terrific. So if we get time, I'll actually share it, because it's literally 10 seconds. Yeah, all right. So I've just got to see that because this course has made it clear that we should be able to see the broader scale of things. Yes, that's true enough. So for me, if we just focus on historical literacy without a context, without a broader sense of how do we do history, we are quite limited. I know my father was a good example, actually. He could talk about many things, discrete elements, you know, of things. So he knew about Homer's Iliad. He'd read it as a kid or whatever in the English translation. He wasn't a classicist or anything. He could talk about many things, but he didn't have any way of weaving them together. So part of what, you know, this course seeks to do particularly is to say, okay, we've got a general framework in which certain things, resource acquisition, it drove all empires, you know, resource equals what? Energy, right? So, and as empires got more, or as villages got more energy, they became cities, and then cities got more energy and they became empires. So they became more complex. And all of that led to specializations, which led to collective learning. So if we can see things through a broader conceptual thing, that's great, but we still need the historical literacy to go with it. So Gil, Rosie and I, Caitlin and I recognized for a long time that doing this kind of work without anchoring it to, let's say, this week's reading, I went back to a traditional historian who gave us a traditional historical analysis of the Middle East over 3,000 years or something like that, okay? And, you know, he makes really good broad points, but he also goes down into the finer detail, and that's really important, that finer detail. I can see a bunch of stuff appearing over here. So Tim reckons, given we're at such a dramatic change, I agree, a broad total understanding is critical. A good word too, I like that word, critical. Luke's run away, he had to go. Have you run away yet, Luke? Nicola said, would love, oh, that's right, you did that already, yes. Or key themes for those certain aspects. Well, hopefully that we're doing some of the key things with in the way that, you know, drawing on, let's say, Homo puppy, you know, the way domestication went both ways. And, you know, we're very much, you know, going back to Gil's argument about you know, the gendered nature of much of our thinking, you know, the human domination of the planet, domination of nature, nature as an adversary that we had to deal with. And if you think about early history, so much of, you know, the religious stuff of Mesopotamia, for instance, was about trying to make a deal with the gods up there that the next crop was going to come in so you wouldn't starve. And you know, that sort of thing. So there was this sense that we had to do something to try and manage the natural world, which could really bring about the death of me and my family, you know, through famine and or you know, disease and so on. So I'm just checking to make sure that we've got everything. So it brings back to Gil was talking about the tutorials. Gil, you've been talking the tutorials again. Whether this current time is more dramatic important than other times. It's a good question, if that's something we can judge. So yeah, I have issues. I use the term, but I do have issues with terms like the Anthropocene. Okay, because it tends to close down or make quite dark. One of the things that one of the reasons why I thought of doing the conversations the way I did on global citizenship is because without hope, we become extremely passive. We become kind of victims of climate change or whatever it might be, return to fascism as the right rises up and so on. So to me, we need stories, and I've just got this one. I've just picked this up today. So this is going to be in next year's course, probably. Humanity, a climate scientist's case for hope. But what she does, she's an Australian author, actually, right? She works at ANU. She really talks about the elemental earth. She's not gendering the earth. She's talking about it as the thing that's under our feet. And of course, we are responsible for. And she says, you know, we're living in an age of consequences. One of the things that I do in my third year course is talk about the way we create names for our moment in time, or a moment, the Middle Ages, you know, the ancient world, the classical age, or whatever it might be, the age of Homer. And with, you know, let's say the Greeks, we talk about the Greek had a dark age between about 1200 or 1100 and about 800 and so on. So we give names to things. And one of my favorite things is that we're now living in the age of whizzing and popping. And I thought that was a terrific one. That's the sort of thing that Gil and Caitlin, you would particularly enjoy. You know, how do we describe the time we live in? I'm going to get this out of the way so that I can see you guys better. So it's really interesting to see. I'm going now to I'm going to share this first just because it's fun. This is the Pechakucha thing. And I'll just share that because it's literally a few seconds. We've got 15 minutes before the hour, and I should stop before that, of course. Otherwise, you'll all hate me. We were supposed to stop at least 10 minutes before things. That's going to get rid of that. Let's go to this just for fun, share sound. And of course, this is also for anybody who might come and watch the, what did you do that for? Stop share, that's not what I was trying to share. That's very strange. Let's see if it does it this time. Okay, share. Yeah. All right, so just for Rosie, okay, and then we should check on this. So,
announced. Are you ready? Pechakucha, or Pechakucha. All of the syllables, and there are 4 of them, have roughly equal length.
There you go. So this is, that's just one of the ones. So it's very interesting. Maybe you've got a dialect, or this is a dialect, because of course not all Japanese speak exactly the same way. But anyway, I'll stop sharing that, and I'm going to jump over now. Just make sure it's open. This one here. And we'll just have a quick take of the pulse, really. I've just got to work out what on earth am I doing? Sorry. I've got to do another one of these today, and my brain's going to be absolutely fried by the end of it. I've got another one of these starting at 3 o'clock for the History 300 guys. So here we go. Breathe out, breathe in. So here we are. So megaliths got mentioned a few times. Gil, where did this Queen Nzinga come from? It's because I don't remember her being in one of the readings.
Yeah, it is National Geographic. It's in the African slavery one, and it's just those little side pop-ups that are there.
Well, I was going. I mean, it's important that I think one of the things we need to be very aware of is this issue of slavery and the way slavery still works today. You know, the way Gil and Caitlin are good examples of slaves. We exploit the hell out of them. And
I'm with Queen Nzinga. Oh,
the
resistance.
Megaliths get Altamira. Isn't that a wonderful thing? Who was that? Tim. Yeah. Now, megaliths for Charlie. Tyler was Gilgamesh. Yeah, Gilgamesh. I find that really interesting. Somebody else, was that you, Donna, that also mentioned Gilgamesh, that there was this? No, it wasn't. But yeah, I thought somebody else had mentioned Gilgamesh. Just the fact that, you know, Gilgamesh gives us the earliest story or version of Noah, which appears in the Old Testament. Charahuyuk, and the Epic of Gilgamesh. So let's very quickly I'm not going to break you into ask two groups to talk. Anybody got things to offer there that about the conversation that occurred, extending? Is there something that, and you can email me, if there are other historical elements that you think would be great to have appearing, email me, and just because I would like to know. I might not be able to do anything about them this time around because I had to wrestle. You remember how hard it was getting the first reading? I had to wrestle with the library, and then actually I had to go and spend about an hour and a half photocopying, scanning, and putting them together, the readings that for you guys, simply because the library couldn't. I'd been told the library could access National Geographic. Turns out that it was going to cost them an arm and a leg or something. So I went and did the way that I have done it. So, yeah. Thank you, Caitlin, putting up Humanities Moment. Yeah. I'm going to be quiet and just see if we can have a general 5-minute wrap up or less. Just a few things that stood out for you guys. And if you haven't spoken yet, speak so that we can hear your dulcet tones. You can tell I'm getting a little bit frayed at the edges when I start becoming poetic. No one's got anything to say? Come on.
All right, I'll say something. Oh, somebody else talk.
Was that you, Charlie? Somebody I thought so.
I did unmute for a second there. I was gonna say I'm a bit brain dead now. So that was all.
Talk about brain dead. Yeah, I can relate to that. So let's take, what was a reading, Charlie, that you did? I'm not assuming anything that you've done them all necessarily, but what one did you do, and perhaps why? Why did you think, oh, I'm really going to look at Gilgamesh as opposed to one of the other ones?
Well, I wrote about, I actually talked about the mighty megaliths because I could remember that one the most, but I do recall I enjoyed reading about the Venus
icons of the same.
Well, yeah. I should really start writing stuff down when I read these like National Geographic things, because there's so many interesting things about it that I can't remember, like when I put on the spot like this, So, but yeah, I did remember that the map for the mighty megaliths was really interesting, and where they were all placed, the different types. And Gil, in the discussion when we went into breakout rooms, we were talking about how landscape becomes part of that history to do with megaliths, which I thought was really interesting as well.
In archaeology, they talk about these megaliths as being part of sacred landscapes. So a sacred landscape was a place very much like the Indigenous Australians had before we came and messed everything up. But, a sacred landscape is an important element of belonging and having a sense of place. So to me, the megaliths are really important. I don't know whether any of you have travelled, let's say, to England, to the UK, and been to Avebury or to Stonehenge or any of those megalith places. Anybody here done any of that? Donna, you've been there. Good. So I remember, and I was like 15, the first time I saw Stonehenge, it was on the, we're going down on the M, whatever the number was, and suddenly there's Stonehenge, and it, like all the hairs on my head stood up type thing. Did you have that sort of experience when you saw one of these?
Yeah, I think for me as well, I would have been pretty young the first time I saw it. And, mum and dad, of course, have to explain what it is. And that's, I think, why I have maybe a different recollection of what I thought it was. But I think it's on the same motorway. You go further down and there's the Chalk Man. So there's this whole section of the UK there that's just kind of, I still remember it as a small child. It just blew my mind because I just couldn't wrap my head around what this thing was, because it's very striking. And around Stonehenge, it's all kind of grassland and sheep farming. So it's very flat as well. So that makes such a contrast, I think, with the monuments.
Yeah. And the work on Stonehenge is so interesting because it's all part of, again, a sacred landscape that covers like 100 square kilometers or something like that. And there's a lot of really good archaeological YouTube type things on. I think I put 1 or 2 in the extended readings or somewhere like that. I'm constantly being told that I overload you guys with stuff. So I have to try and rein in my enthusiasm, because I don't know whether I'm obsessed or whatever, but I just get off on this stuff so much, and it's so diverse. It's not that I'm Eurocentric, because really I get just as obsessed with, when I went to Angkor Wat, in Thailand, in Cambodia, should I say, not Thailand. Been to Thailand too and done a whole bunch of stuff there. India, the Taj Mahal and places like that, just blow your mind. Just the sheer presence of, so to me, I'm very interested in the body and the human body in space and the way we relate to space. And that's why, if you've ever looked at what sort of stuff I've done, you'll know that I'm about the embodied experience of being human. So Gil's got a chapter in a book that we've got coming out. It's now with Routledge, on identities and fluid identities and so on. And this is really important. And one of the last books that I was involved with, other than poetry books, and I seem to get involved with poetry books a lot, is on phenomenology and that kind of hair standing up on end type thing that you get when you experience certain places and spaces. Anyway, we should stop really, but I want to thank you very much for engaging. And we had about, we didn't have a lot of people, but we had more than, I think, the first seminar. And I think, this one, because we got more to work with, but also I was as sick as a dog for seminar one. So that didn't help at all either. I showed up and I think that could have been handled better. But what I'm going to do, if you could all email me a time that works for you, let's say week 11, 12, 13, in one of those weeks, and we will have a lecture. We'll do a lecture just for fun. And
yay!
Yeah.
Why don't we do it like you've scheduled the seminar in my tutorial time, and that at least has a fair chance of capturing of a number of students being available.
Yeah. Is this your tutorial time, Gil? No, yours.
Yeah.
It is it?
Yeah, it's my Thursday. Okay,
so this, at least, how many of you, because some of you might be, far away, how many of you could attend a face-to-face lecture?
I can do it throughout the day, but I work nights, so anything after 4 o'clock.
I'm not going to do nights. I'm an old bloke. I need to go home and eat my porridge and soup or whatever it is. Charlie, you waved your hand at us. Becca, are you there or not? Nicola? I'm looking at people on the bottom here now.
Yeah, I probably couldn't attend face-to-face.
Okay. And Nicola, how about you? Can you attend face-to-face? And Tyler, you're the other person here now.
Well, from memory, I mean, we can run Zoom in LT5, yeah. as well.
Yeah, we could. LT5 does Zoom, definitely.
And one of us, me or Rosie, could just monitor the chat so get on with it.
You can monitor the chat. Okay. We'll do something like that. Let's stop there. It's right up to the hour type thing. I'm just going to stop recording. So thank you very much. You want to wave for those of you who go, yeah. So we've got you there. Just to prove.